Okay, so welcome to the Play to the Whistle podcast. We are doing it a bit different today. You're joined by me, Kieran, or at Footy and Psych. Um, we're missing T Dot, we're missing Jesse today. They're on annual leave. They've left me on my own, so I'm going to be taking this all solo. This is why when we say if you want to come on, let us know so you can come and join us. But I'm going to be taking you all through some games from the weekend. We've had some cracking games, some cracking results. So I'm going to get right into it and do the most recent game of the weekend, which was West Ham and Liverpool. Obviously, a great game. West Ham won this one 3-2. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that was, just, well, why I guess a lot of people are blown away by this game. So obviously both sides came into this game, in good form. Both well coached sides. Um, what can I say? The first goalkeeper's got to do better. I think many agree on Twitter. I know Jesse and Taz were sort of tweeting about this one. For me, it's not really a foul. I think it's a great delivery. He just needs to come out and be strong. I think we've seen Allison do that before. I think what's quite interesting where the game could have turned was that there were two possible red card challenges as well. So Cresswell's scissor kick, I think, is what we're gonna have to call it. Um, I think the referee's got to send them off. VAR looks at it as well. I could see all of the tweets, Twitter family going crazy. It's got to be a red card, really, and then nothing's really given for it. Jota has a cheeky one on Ogbonna as well. Little elbow that's left in that. Some may get sent off for that. You got to say with the referee, I think if you're given one of them, you probably got to give the other one as well. But they've been consistent in not kind of overreacting. But definitely Cresswell for that challenge on Henderson probably should be going. But obviously, West Ham take an early lead. Liverpool, I think they do well, pulling themselves back in. My feeling was actually that Liverpool did quite well to pull themselves back, and you're wondering how many it was going to be after that. But they get their goal back. Brilliant free kick. I know me and Jesse have been disagreeing on this one about the wall. For me, I think it's an excellent free kick. I think he's put that. He's bent it round. You can see it's kind of curled around. It's sort of in line with the post and comes back in. I think it's a really good strike. Great technique. Personally, I feel if they shift that wall across, you can see at the end. I'm not sure who it is that's covering on the edge of the wall, but they duck away. So they kind of pull away from the wall and duck, and you can see the ball kind of goes around there. So it's kind of level with the next man along. I think it might be Bowen or Cresswell in the wall. If that shifted a couple of feet over, the wall get to it, possibly head it away, or Trent's got to come up with a different strategy, but take nothing away from the free kick. It was a great free kick, and I think at that point Liverpool deserved to be back in the game. Second half comes up. I think Liverpool are doing quite well actually. They're playing some good football, even at the back. I think there's a challenge from Virgil when I think it's Fornals tried to cut it back to Bowen, and Virgil's made a good challenge there, and there's a couple of other really good challenges in there as well. So you think at this point again, it's just a matter of time. I think Jota's playing really well at this point. He's winning the ball back. He's doing well at the other end, same as Salah. Um, but the goal kind of comes out of nothing, really. I think Sky, if you were watching it on Sky, they have a stat where West Ham, I think they've had one shot in the first half, not even on target. And in the second half, I think they've had two shots and one on target. So they really weren't in the game. But you could see there were signs coming. There was a few chances where Antonio was running at the defence, couldn't quite sort of use his pace or get past, get further away enough from the last man. There's a chance where he trips over the ball as well. But Bowen does amazingly well. And this is what we're talking about in terms of making good decisions. We talk about other teams on the pod, and where some of the attackers aren't making the best decisions, usually some of the younger players in particular. But Bowen you can see Antonio is making a run across and he's offside. Now, an inexperienced striker will play that, inexperienced attacker will play that ball in. And Antonio's obviously going to be offside. You're going to lose momentum. You're just going to have the ball back. But he holds on to it. You can see he's probably debating in his head whether he's going to continue that on or lay it off. He waits until the perfect moment and then obviously plays in Fornals, who slots it nicely. It's quite interesting because Antonio has a very similar chance late on in the game, which I think would make it either 3-1 or 4-1. I think it's probably to make it 3-1 at that point. But obviously, Fornals beats the keeper on that time. I've got to give a massive shout out to Zuma. I think it was excellent today. He's obviously got what has turned out to be the winning goal. So really, really good performance at the back. Obviously, they had a bit of a shift around with Dawson coming in at the back after Bonner's gone off injured. But his header is exactly what you need from a defensive player coming up for a corner. The ball in is it's a wicked ball. Could be defended much better. It isn't. But take nothing away from the header. He's put it in the exact place that it needs to go. And it's gone straight through Allison's hands. He can't do anything about it. And at that point, you are a little bit worried for West Ham because obviously, a David Moyes team, they're going to more than likely just sort of sit with that possession. We've seen from Origi's goal to make it 3-2. Liverpool were making loads of chances. But to be fair to them, West Ham, they held off, got a little bit fortunate. Mane's probably in other games, especially if he's playing at Old Trafford, he's probably going to tuck that away. But he's put it wide. And, I think it's a fantastic performance. It's a great game of football, great advertisement for the Premier League. But West Ham, they've got the result there. They were clinical enough and got a bit of luck along the way. And full credit to them. They'll probably play better in other games, but it was a really really good performance. And I think for Liverpool, the way that they played, I don't think anybody should be majorly concerned. I think there's no embarrassment to lose to West Ham, um, given that the way that they've been playing, their form. Obviously, they've climbed quite high up in the table as well. After that result, so then they're now in third place above Liverpool. They've only lost two this season, so I don't think it's any shame. It's Liverpool's first defeat of the season as well. So I don't think they'll be overly concerned. I think something needs to be done. I've seen a few people talking about that high line today, and look, that's how they play. They press high and they try and win the ball back. But when you've got wingers like obviously Fornals has come on, you've got Ben Rama, who's obviously very tricky and gets down the line. Got Antonio, who's a very good ball carrier, obviously previously a winger, so he knows what to do in getting in those wide positions. And Bowen as well, he's been an excellent signing for West Ham. You're going to get yourself into trouble. You can see there's some issues. A lot of people criticizing Trent's performance. He didn't play as bad as I think he's played today. I think he's shown a more mature performance, but he has made some big errors. And obviously when you have that with a Virgil van Dijk, who's obviously still coming back to fitness, and Matip, who's a very good centre back, but again has some flaws to his game. You're going to get spaces in behind there, and that's what's going to hurt them really with that as well. It's a great performance from West Ham in terms of just getting that result and being sort of defensively solid. Zuma played really well, and for Liverpool, I'm sure they'll be looking forward to the next game. 4 points off the top, but there's always opportunities for them to obviously sort of claw that back. So I'm going to move on to Spurs Everton. We're moving there next because obviously it's Conte's first game. I think it was is an interesting game, not particularly one. I think probably if the others had been here, we might not be covering it. But I think a good game to pick up on. Obviously, Conte's first Premier League game for his new club, and obviously for Everton. A lot of injuries that they've got, a few key players out, and not on the best run of form at the moment. So obviously this game finished 0-0. Everton finished the game with 10 men. Let's talk about Spurs. So Conte's obviously, I think everybody knows that he's going to be lining up with the sort of 3-4-3 system, which converts into a five at the back when defending, and almost like a 3-2-4 kind of formation. Um, I think in terms of the game itself, it wasn't particularly entertaining. Obviously the clips that I've seen. Um, I think Spurs they're okay. I think they obviously made quite a few chances. You can see with the way that Conte sets up, and I think we've talked about it before. He wants those wingers to obviously be of a good standard, so they can get in and attack offensively as well. So it's not enough just to be good defensively. It's really important that you can get in there. And we can see actually with some of the crosses, so a lot of the sort of deeper crosses to the far post. I think Emerson has a good chance early on, and on the other side you can see Regulon getting in there as well. It's quite interesting that he's gone with sort of Dyer in the heart of that. Obviously, he doesn't fancy Sanchez, and he's obviously got Davis on the left hand side, probably to create balance. You wonder as time goes on whether that is going to turn into almost like a lopsided sort of four at the back, where Regulon sort of pushes on and tucks in, and Davis maybe overlaps. He's obviously got the ability to do that and has played as a left back, obviously, before. But obviously, still very early days. Conte's working on the squad. Spurs obviously didn't have a shot on target today, and there was a lot that was made out about that. I think, as I've mentioned before, yes, ideally you do want shots on target, but it's all about context. They've had a few good chances. Lo Celso, for example, was unlucky with hitting the post as well, and yeah, they had a few other chances that obviously gone off target. So they'll be working to obviously get more into the likes of Kane, the likes of obviously sort of Son, Mora, obviously Bergwijn, when he comes on and plays as well. So again, still early days. I wanted to obviously touch on a few of the decisions, because VAR had quite a role to play in this game. The first one is a bit of an odd one, really. So you have the penalty around the hour mark with Richarlison. It's a really odd decision, because the referee stops play to give the penalty, which isn't very clear cut in the first place, and a lot is made already anyway over the quality and standard of the referee in the English Premier League and in the divisions below. We see, if you follow the Championship and the lower leagues, there are already some dreadful decisions that have been made in the last 7 days, let alone the season as well. So it was really odd to see that the referee decided to give that penalty so quickly when Richarlison got back up, got the ball, and Everton may have scored from that anyway. I think if anything, you let that play out a little bit. Spurs get the ball, there's a turnover. That's probably the chance to bring it back and blow up for the penalty, or consult VAR, or wait for the ball to go out of play. So it was really odd. For me, it's probably not a penalty. It seems it seems that Lloris does get a touch on the ball. It's a tricky one. Probably if there's a tackle like that, someone gets their foot to the ball and takes the play, you're probably getting a free kick outside the area. But Lloris probably gets just enough on the ball, which again is the reason why you don't blow up and give that decision early on. The other decision, of course, is around Holgate, who is, I think, quite unlucky to get that red card. These are the kind of tackles I think that need more clarification around what the rules are. Obviously, the actual movement itself, the height of the boot is it's very high. It's obviously caught. I can't remember who he's caught, but he's caught obviously the player on the side of the leg, on the thigh. It does seem so. It's Hoiberg. On its own, without a football, yeah, it's not a great tackle. But where do you kind of draw the line? Is it a case that if you take a shot, the ball sort of rustles in the top corner, but your follow through catches someone on the knee? Is that then a red card as well? Like it seems a bit odd. It didn't seem like he didn't have control over the ball. For me, it seems like he's clearing the ball. It's late on in the game, so I think he's quite unlucky to have that red card, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is overturned. Moving on to Everton, you can see that they're struggling. One of the things I was going to talk about with the other host today, but we'll probably catch up on this another time, is sort of Rafa and how he's getting on. A little bit of a sort of early season review, but it's been tough. They're five without a win. I think Delph was given man of the match. They've got Anthony Gordon coming in on that right hand side to try and help out with the sort of deficit, but you can tell they're really missing Decore. I think he was a massive catalyst for the side in sort of the early part of the season. Had some amazing performances against other sides, and I think they really missed him today. Townsend did quite well. I think he hits the post in the game as well with a really good shot. But you want Decore in there. I'll talk about Conor Gallagher a bit later for Palace. But you need someone who's going to sort of make those late drives into the box, really sort of pull the defence apart, and particularly with against Tottenham, who obviously are adjusting to a not a new system, but a new manager and a slightly different way of playing. When you have a player like Decore, it can obviously cause a lot of issues, a lot of confusion and panic within a defence that is a little bit shaky as well. So I think overall for both of these sides, they're not in the worst position after 11 games. They're 1 point away from each other. You've got obviously Spurs in ninth, Everton in 11th. Um, but Spurs are, 1 point off sixth. Everton 2 points off sixth. Everton only 7 points off for fourth place. Regardless of how you want to look at that, they are chasing Liverpool, and same with obviously Spurs, not that far away. So there's obviously a lot to still be played for. Interesting to see what Conte does with the side, and Rafa. I think you can't count them out, particularly when you get someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin back as well. We'll probably see things start to change. So if both sides can keep players fit, and both managers can get their systems implemented, I think we'll see a lot of change and a lot of improvement, and we'll probably see these sides pushing for sort of top six, top seven. So we're going to move on to the Man City Man United game at Old Trafford, which didn't finish 5-0, but probably should have finished 2-0, courtesy obviously of a Bailey, or Bailly, I should say, own goal. And I mean, it might as well have been a Shaw, Maguire, De Gea own goal, but obviously wasn't. We're going to play a little clip from Jesse in terms of his view and his take on the game. So, obviously, I think Jesse's made some quite pertinent points as always, and yeah, I totally agree. As I mentioned, it could have been another five. I think what Jesse's mentioned in regard to Rodri, absolutely spot on, and exactly what United are missing. Actually, you have a player like that, you can you can do so much more with the ball, with the game. Um, I think one of the philosophies that often gets talking about with Pep, and I use the word philosophy very lightly, but if you have the ball, you can cause the opposition to make mistakes. Obviously, Jose is very much his school of thought is the opposite. If you try and cause the opposition to make a mistake and seize upon that, but all City did in that game, and exactly where Phil Foden was talking about in terms of picking their chances, they just waited for the mistakes. They held on to the ball and they made the mistakes happen, and they did that very well. Um, and it was a great squad performance. It could have been so many more. David De Gea, despite the issue with the last goal, or the second goal, was on great form. That easily would have been a cricket scoreline, if someone else had been in goal. Um, I suppose moving on to United, things Jesse's mentioned, we've talked about them quite a lot, to be honest. If you kind of want to know what my thoughts are, there are plenty of sort of sound bites from Michael Owen, Roy Keane, and Paul Scholes on doing the rounds on social media. I think they've said what needs to be said, really. again, with what Jesse said, totally agree with what he's mentioned about Bruno. I don't really respect him in the way that Jesse does. I think he's a guy that is there for a certain type of game, and if he's not performed well, either you don't start him or you take him off. He does have a lot to offer, but in a game like that, particularly where you need to look after the ball quite a lot, I think it's really important to play players that are going to do that. And that team that Ollie put out, it set him up to fail. I don't think anybody has purposely thrown him under the bus or made life particularly difficult, but they just weren't of the standard or the ability. You just have to look at the second goal to know why I've said Harry Maguire is an average player and very limited in playing for the way that Ollie wants them to play. And my kind of only question really, I say my only question, but one of my questions for Ollie is why haven't you done what's worked before, given he's got such a good record against Pep? And why is he changed? And I think a lot of people know the answer to that because he is like a 15-year-old playing football manager, and you know um, just makes adaptations game by game without a structured plan. So it is a shame. Ollie will probably survive another couple of months, but you can see as things start to drift further and further away. If he does not stop this rot, then he will not be there after Christmas. I am going to leave it there with United because what I do want to talk about is another team that has struggled at the top of the table this weekend. Chelsea won, Burnley won, and I know, of course, teed up. We'll probably be talking about this on his other podcasts as well. But for me, the result itself is not the end of the world. It's particularly in hindsight. I think it's one of the things that I've always said when you play Burnley, when you're one of the big sides and you play Burnley at home, Burnley are set up to get a result like that away from home. I totally agree with what Tuchel said. 99 times out of 100, Chelsea will win that game. But when you're playing Burnley, it's always that 100th time where they get the point. And they didn't do a great deal. They got absolutely hammered for considering the result finished 1-1. I think the possession was something between 70 to 80% in Chelsea's favour. But Burnley will always get a chance. And part of that is because of the way that their team is set up, but the way that their strikers work. And with Burnley, what you've got are a combination of lots of good options up front. They've got Cornet, obviously that's added to that. Ashley Barnes, he's had a couple of sort of big injuries and is obviously not getting younger, but him and Woods do create a good combination. Cornet is helping to sort of bridge that gap. I know obviously Rodriguez came on forwards as well. He's very clever. Both him and Woods play the game in their heads. They're not necessarily the quickest, but they are able to sort of work on the ball and bring people in quite well. And then of course Vidra, he's got previous. He's got a very good goal record. He's obviously gone to Burnley to fit that system and to play as part of a squad. And they got their goal and fair play to them. Obviously they held, they managed to hold on. The form has been better. They're now unbeaten in the last three games, which is really important for their I don't know if we're going to call it a relegation survival, but they've got 5 points from their last five games. I think now they're 2 points off safety, 3 points off 15th. This is the time of year where they start to turn up and really turn the screw. So you expect now that they're going to kind of push on. The only danger they've got at this moment is if they lose Tarkowski, because he is someone as part of that system works really well for them. I think he is out of contract at the end of the season, but I would not be surprised to see him and Burnley agree for him to let that run down before he maybe moves on to a side like an Everton, for example, or a Leicester or somewhere like that as well. For Chelsea, as I mentioned, it's not the end of the world, the result. That's the fourth goal that they've conceded this season in 11, which is astonishing when you think about it, really. They've only lost one game. They've dropped points in 3 games out of 11. And it was a matter of poor finishing, really, and bad luck. Good goalkeeping that stopped them from winning that game, really. And I think a lot of people have gotten on to Lukaku about them not finishing, chances. I think he's been on a scoreless run for 5 or 6 games. But this is one of those games where you want him to play because those chances he's polishing off or making chances for himself. So it's unfortunate that obviously he's injured there for Chelsea. They still have a nice, comfortable 4 point lead, which, you ask any team at the beginning of the season, if they have that after 11 games, they'll be quite happy. But you do wonder for Chelsea, and I don't know if Chelsea fans would agree with me, but whether they need another striker, um, whether that's to push Lukaku, which, when you sign someone for 80, 90 million, you're probably hoping you don't need to do that. But certainly when he's not playing, you have to wonder. I think Havertz is a wonderful player, but do you need someone else that can come in, just someone that can just do the business, that can score a goal? Someone like a Cavani, for example, if there is a player of that ilk available on a free that you can bring in, guys like Lorente, for example, in the past that have come out and done something, fulfilled that kind of role. I think for Spurs, obviously when Harry Kane was out, you wonder if Chelsea could do with a player like that as well. But for me personally, I think the result is not the end of the world for Chelsea. You look at Burnley's record over the last 5 years against the Chelsea's, Man United, Liverpool, even Arsenal. They do tend to pick up points away from home against the big sides. So for Chelsea, actually, given the other results that have happened this weekend, it's not a bad result at all. So, as usual, we're at the time of the podcast where we praise Patrick Vieira because he is doing an unbelievable job at Palace. And not only that, I think the players as well. I think you've got to give a lot of credit to those players because there are a lot of them. They're hardworking. They're grafting. You can see they're developing and improving. They're getting more and more consistent, and they've not let a bad start, really ruin what is looking like a really good relationship and structure as well. I think some praise has to go to VAR as well. So obviously Palace win 2-0 at the mighty Selhurst Park. Um, I don't know what the linesman is doing for that first goal. Anyone can tell you that Zaha is miles on side. So I don't know if that's a concentration thing. I know we're not reviewing the referee's performance and linesman's performance, but that was a dreadful decision. But it's a really good finish from Zaha. He does well earlier in the game. He has a few sort of nice touches, creates a few opportunities as well. But yeah, it's a brilliant finish, and it's good to see him, doing what he does best. And who knows what will happen with Palace this season? Hopefully, he may get a little cameo in Europe at some point. But let's not get too carried away. Um, we have to talk about Conor Gallagher because he's a player, obviously, that I think a lot of people, especially from the Chelsea side and anyone that watches youth football, don't know about him, as well. I think the scouting team and the recruitment team at Palace deserve a lot of credit for this signing because they've obviously seen something in him that they feel that they can use quite a lot and work on. Um, I mean, the goal that he scores is it's such a good finish. And what's really impressive about the way that he's been playing is that he is turning into and being molded into a striker who is almost like Frank Lampard-esque in terms of those late runs. There's a few players that are quite good at this. So Lingard, for example, is I think one of the best late runners into the box that you'll find in the Premiership at the moment. There are obviously lots of examples of this. Dele Alli used to obviously do this very well when obviously he was in the Spurs team and in there, but it makes it really difficult to defend against because what you're looking at in terms of the sort of Palace side, and a massive shout out as well to Benteke as well, who was obviously sort of come back into form. But what you've got is a massive issue with the forward players that Palace have. You can't take your eye off Jordan Ayew. He's proved that he's not the most clinical, but he'll always be a threat. You've also got Edouard, who sort of played in a sort of tucked in sort of off the left as well. You've also got Olise. We don't have to talk about Zaha much. So you've got these guys that can play there. Obviously, Eze is another player who can sort of drift about and get around the pitch. So you've got all of these guys occupying usually what would be a back four, but quite often a back three, which means those players get sucked in. You have to double up with those wide players. You can't obviously let Zaha go one on one with anyone because they'll be on toast. And what's really great about Gallagher is he waits until the right time, but he has that temperament, that maturity to kind of get in there. And we saw that with the chance he had early on, where I think it's Benteke has a shot, might be Eduardo actually, but I think it's Benteke has a shot. Keeper sort of parries it, and he's right in there. And obviously, he catches the keeper and doesn't score on that occasion, but he's done it a couple of times. Again, Man City last weekend, he gets in there sort of late on, and it's that's something sometimes that you need to have a knack and an instinct for. You can train someone to do that, but it's the desire to get there. So you can have someone train on time in their runs, running in quite late, sort of taking the right positions, doing all of the kind of drills and training. But it's the desire, particularly at the time that he scored. So late on in the game against City, 12 minutes before the end of time in the game that Palace played on Saturday. It's that desire that gets you there. And for the opposition team, it's a bit of a nightmare because what you've got with Wolves, who have made a really good start to the season, by the way. But when you've got a player driving through the middle, Neves doesn't really want to go with him. It's not really his game. He likes to intercept passes, or he's very good positionally, but he doesn't want to be chasing players back, and often picks up a card or two. And Moutinho, really great technician, very mature, very experienced midfielder, but again, he doesn't want to be chasing players back. The issue you've then got once Gallagher has infiltrated the midfield and is obviously onto the defence, is you've got Cody's got to make a decision, um, or one of the other centre backs, and it's quite difficult. Then do you leave your man and pull away, but then that guy's free? It's almost impossible to defend, and there's not much you can do. Yes, he gets a deflection, and it's a fortunate deflection, but you've got to put yourself in the right positions there. So it's really great to see that Vieira is utilizing that. And what's even more impressive is that this isn't going to be a one-off, because of course Gallagher, you're thinking probably him and Gilmore will be two players that you're hoping. For anyone that's a fan of football and wanted to see players come from the youth side and make it through, they'll go back to they'll play at Chelsea, or Gallagher will go back to Chelsea and do well. But you've then got Eze, you've got Olise, who can probably fulfill that sort of position as well and get in there. So what he's building is a really good system that's going to allow that, and that's been really impressive. Alongside just their general organisation, which has been fantastic. It's another clean sheet for them defensively. Palace actually have been reasonably impressive considering. Their troubles at the beginning of the season where they were conceding quite a few, but the clean sheet is going to be a real plus. Their current form means that they will be feeling quite confident. So last 5 games, they've obviously picked up 9 points, which is impressive, and they've got certainly some winnable games coming up. So it's a really impressive start for Patrick Vieira, one of my all-time favourite midfielders of all time, in not just in the Premier League but in world football, and in the time that I've been watching, and with the plays he's got at his disposal, and the managers he's worked under, you're thinking this could be something quite special for Palace if they can hold on to some of their players and keep the system that they've got. For Wolves, I don't think, again, anything to be concerned about. They weren't dreadful yesterday. They played okay. They've won 3 of the last 5. They're eighth in the table. Considering they've got a new manager, they've got Jimenez, who's obviously come back and is obviously on the score sheet in recent games. Obviously not on Saturday, but they have been doing quite well, playing really good football. They've got, again, some good young talents coming through. these are games when you're around mid-table playing mid-table teams. You might win, you might lose, but they've made an impressive start to the season. 16 points after 11 games. You're thinking unless there's something dramatic that happens, they're probably going to be safe and probably looking to push into the top 10 with my other sort of underdogs, Brighton, who I feel will also finish quite high in the league this season. So obviously there's been a lot of interesting managerial changes, which I'll come on to in a moment. But we're going to hear again from Jesse, who's going to give his views on the Arsenal Watford game. Of course, Arsenal winning 1-0, Watford going down to 10 men late on. So obviously, you've just heard from Jesse on the Arsenal game. I totally agree. Uh, I think the goal, there's a lot of issues around it, and it's it's not great viewing. Um, I think just watching it as a neutral, and especially if you're not an Arsenal fan, I think even the most hardened Arsenal fan will probably agree that if the ball goes out like that, you should be giving it back. Now, in fairness, Watford do have a chance to clear the ball again. I can't remember who it is that gets the ball in the center of the pitch, but they can just smash it out of play um, as well. But they try and play on. It is a foul by Maitland-Niles, but again. Um, it is a tricky one. I think the referees had a bit of a shocker there. On the other side of it, I mean, the finish is great, and I echo everything that Jesse said about Smith Rowe. I think we could literally do a whole sort of pod episode on how good he is, and I think how good he's going to be because he's got the mentality there as well. But look, Arsenal, they played well today. They could have had a couple more. I think Foster makes some good saves late on. I'll start off with the good bits of Arsenal. I think what I've noticed with them and what's helped them and why I believe that this change of form might be sustainable is they are doing the simple things very well. Their shape and the structure when they're attacking and defending is quite good. They're pressing in a way that you can tell they've been told to all press in a very similar way with a particular system. Um, the way that they are attacking, the way that they are holding the ball up at the end of the game to try and see it out. I think there's some issues with their game management towards the end. There were some players that were trying to hold on to the ball, others that were trying to sort of counter attack, and they were fortunate that Watford were down to 10 men because there were a couple of chances. Ben White played quite well today. His build up in the goal was really good, and that's what he can obviously offer. And that's no surprise to anyone that has watched him before. Both I think it was with Leeds in the Championship, and obviously with Brighton as well. Um, but it's little things like the incident with Josh King, who should be scoring that chance right at the end of the game. It's an open goal, regardless of how tight the angle is. If you're a professional footballer, even if you're a power league five-a-side player, you should be putting that in the net. And it's hard to know at this stage. I raised some concerns about Ramsdale. For me, he's got some eccentricity challenges, let's say, or issues that over time hopefully will mature. And that might just be between him and White not really playing together. There may have been a misunderstanding and miscommunication, but they are very lucky that that didn't result in 1-1 because that would have finished 1-1. But they do well, Arsenal. They deserve that victory. Fair play to Watford as well. I think Ranieri's he's got Watford set up well. They need to be careful in terms of there's not a whole load of games where you're looking at thinking they'll definitely win. And when you start to miss little opportunities like they have been, and if you start to go on a losing run, which they have won in their last five, but they've also lost four of their last five, you can get stuck. It's unlikely they'll sign anyone in the January transfer window as well. So you just want to be careful. You've got the likes of Burnley and Newcastle behind you. We've all written off Norwich, but they did win on Saturday. So They just need to be mindful of that. But with Ranieri, you're always going to have a chance. He's been at both ends of the table. He's played with all kinds of squads, all kind of players. So you kind of know that he's a quality manager and can do a bit as well. Just going to touch on a few other bits of news. So obviously Dean Smith, after Villa's defeat to Southampton, he's been sacked as well. I think when you lose as many games in a row as he has, it's going to be hard to escape a lot of scrutiny. There have been question marks that have been asked, I think, over him. I think they have done very well. The way that they've played at times has been very impressive, but there are some concerns around when Grealish was injured, as I've mentioned before. But also, they were very, very fortunate to stay up with that first season. They should have gone down, really, from my opinion. I know it's all ifs and buts, but they weren't doing particularly well under him. Yes, they have a different team, but their form really dropped off after COVID. Jack Grealish, McGinn, a few of the other players that played well. Conser played well. Martinez played well last season. They had some good, outstanding players, but we don't know, McGinn aside, we don't know much about the ability of these players to sustain that over a number of seasons in the Premier League. We know that they've had good spells, but they are struggling defensively. And up top, Watkins a very good player, but um, it's difficult. It's the second season in the league. Danny Ings will give you something, but you have to make sure you cater to his kind of game. And I feel that Dean Smith just had too many players of a similar ability and didn't quite know what he was doing with the squad. I think as Jesse's mentioned, and ultimately, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Farke has also gone from Norwich. I think great that he's managed to leave them with a gift of a win to at least give the next manager a chance. I don't think his style just particularly suited the Prem. It's nice that he's wanting to do his way, but you can't do that. And I think it was mentioned early on in the season on the pod. It's always going to be difficult for to come up with the players that they've got, the players that they've lost, and play that way. So it's unfortunate. He seemed like he was a manager that was trying to play it in the best way. His results actually haven't been as bad in the last 5 games. They've drawn 2 and won 1. So all of their 5 points have come in the last 5 games, but Norwich obviously have seen fit to part ways. And of course, we've got Xavi, who's taken over at Barcelona. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. I know that we're going to be probably talking about that appointment at some point on the pod, but it'll be interesting. Obviously, he's a graduate of the Barca Academy. He's worked under some unbelievable managers, Van Gaal and Pep. To say the least, and as well, obviously the international level, some top managers as well. It'll be a very different situation to obviously Pep's situation when he came and Luis Enrique. There are some very good players at the helm. Ansu Fati has come back from injury and I think is their second highest scorer after only 4 games. But you can see, particularly with the results that they've had, given away 3-0 leads and whatnot, they're going to need a lot of help. And finally, to end the podcast, a shout out to the giant killers of the day, which are St Albans City, in the 6th tier, and have come back from behind to knock out Forest Green Rovers, who obviously, if anyone knows me, are the club that I'm following this season, but they will not be causing any FA Cup upsets. So that one was live on BBC One. You can catch the highlights on iPlayer. But it was 2-2 at half time, but they've scored in the 78th minute. Vice looks like he's had a really good game. He's got a goal and a goal and 2 assists for St Albans City, and they go into the next round. And of course, you never know what can happen. A nice little run into the 3rd round. You get a Man City away from home, very lucrative. So well done to St Albans City. So want to thank you for listening to me and snippets of Jesse for what is 45 minutes now. Obviously, we'll be back hopefully to our full squads, but I've been manning the wall on my own. I hope you've enjoyed it. Of course, if you do want to get involved, you can tweet us, and that is on at the pttw podcast. It is the same on Instagram as well. Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you. And like we said, do come and join us if you feel like you want to have a say. You can agree, disagree. We're all up for the debate as well. So thank you very much.